I made a video a while ago called the one sentence method, which is the easiest way to start journaling. And all that is you take your field notes or some small notebook that you can leave in your pocket with you all the time, and you just put a date in the top and you write one sentence at the end of the day that you felt about the day, and that's it. And then the other important parts is that at the end of the week you want to review the 7 sentences you wrote for the week. Maybe you write a quick little 2-3 sentence reflection and so on, and go from there. So it builds a habit, and that is why I say that is the easiest way to start journaling, because it also turns it into a habit because it is so quick and easy to do, and you do that daily. Now, if you're already doing that, and if you want to get to the next level, here is the sort of the next step that I would recommend. So this is the 5 sentence method, and you can continue using your field notes and just put the date and write these 5 words, and then write one sentence against each of them, and that'll be your 5 sentence method. I use this every day myself, and I love it. I use it in part of my bullet journal, which means I do the 5 sentences, and then I also write a little bit underneath it. But what really helps me is, even on days when I'm pressed for time, I make sure I get those 5 sentences in, because that's all that I need, and I think that adds a lot of clarity to my day. And that's really the point of it, is when you're going from that 1 sentence to 5 sentences, you're really writing a few more sentences, but the clarity that you get because of what these are just completely exponential, at least to me. So what are these 5 sentences? They're the following. It's an acronym called WORDS, WORDS, and I read about this, or I saw it in a video by Ryder Carroll, who's the founder of Bullet Journal, some time ago, and I've been using it since then. I couldn't find a link to his video, but I want to share how I use it every day and kind of show you why I really like it. Okay, so here's what they are. It's an acronym called WORDS, WORDS, and what they stand for is wins, received from others, did for others. I'm sorry, I missed one. It's wins, observations, received from others, did for others, and story of the day. That's the 5 sentences that you write, right? And what I do is I just write WRDS, and then next to them I just write the sentences that come with it. And here's why they're important. The first one, wins, is where you write about one sentence about what was a win you had on that day. And what that cultivates, at least for me, is cultivates a lot of self-compassion. So we're often very critical about ourselves, and many of us are very pessimistic about ourselves. So forcing yourself to talk about something that you won that day is really good. Because many days, I'll be honest, I don't think I won anything. And then I look back and realize that actually, no, there are small wins that I have achieved. And it could be something as insubstantial as, say I'm trying to eat healthy, and I was craving, let's say, donuts, and I resisted that urge to go get donuts. I walked by the store and I did not go in. That's a win. So write that down, because what that does is gives you a little bit of extra reward every day that you were able to overcome maybe something that you're trying to do better at. So that's the first one, is wins. The second one is observations. So observations is where you really cultivate insight. Now, everybody has their own way of doing this. Here's mine, right? So I am a very left brain kind of analytical person. I'm an engineer by trade. So the emotional side of my psyche, I don't really get to access very often. So what I force myself to do on observations is write about something that I felt an emotion of. It could be something as that I was, maybe I felt impatience, I felt frustrated, I felt elated, I felt happy. I try to write those in because that cultivates, at least for me, the muscle, the mental muscle of recognizing feelings and emotions, which is important for me. It's without that, I feel there's more imbalance in my life, at least. Now, I could also write other things that I actually literally observe, so like tangible things, like if the weather turned cold, you could write about that, or if you saw a particularly nice sunset, you could write about that. So it could be whatever you want it to be, but here's how I kind of mold it to something that is important for me to cultivate in my life, which is really try to recognize feelings. So that's observations. The next one is received from others, which should be pretty self-explanatory, but if it isn't, it is really just practicing gratitude, just another word for that, right? So at the end of the day, when I'm sitting down and trying to think, what did I receive from others? Sometimes I draw a blank and then I realize, no, I did, even if it was something small and insubstantial, I did receive something from others. Like, some mornings when my wife is making her breakfast, she'll cut up the fruits for me. So when I come to make my breakfast, the fruits are ready. And even though it's a small thing, those are the little things that at least, we can take for granted and then forget the gratitude that comes from that. And then that's a moment let's say I forgot to thank my wife, but if I wrote that down, if I was forced to reflect on it, which is really what this is doing, is forcing me to reflect on the day that has just gone past, then I can, get up and say, hey, thank you for cutting up the fruits for me this morning. I totally forgot to say thank you. And those are little things that, improve relationships. So it's really cultivating that level of gratitude. And I love that it forces me to really think about what somebody else did. It could even be an employee who said something nice to me on the phone or whatever. Those you could take for granted, or you could go into your ego. And this is how I can kind of try and avoid that. So that's received from others, did for others. So this is turning that around and saying, well, what did I do to help other people? And I'll be honest, some days I'm drawing a blank here. And that to me is a sign to actually get up and do something for others the next day. So I realized that, hey, I'm going to have to ask myself this question tomorrow night, and I better have an answer here. And so I'm now practicing, the giving mindset as well. So that would be, I did thank somebody for the work they did on a project, or I thanked my wife for cutting up the fruits, or whatever have you. It could be something as simple as that. It could obviously be the bigger things that you help somebody with something big, whatever have you. You could do those. But it really helps you, almost tally up that did you also contribute to the people around you, to the world around you, or were you just kind of taking, right? So again, try, if you can't find an answer here, sometimes I do feel bad about hey, maybe I've been very selfish all day today, but it's just one day. You get to start over the next day with a fresh slate, and that's the beauty of it. The last one, so if you've already done these, the common theme that comes out of this is you're cultivating insight of some kind. Like with the wins, you're cultivating the insight to be less self-critical, maybe give yourself some wins if you're a pessimistic-minded person. With observations, you're cultivating insights around either your environment or your internal, emotions. With received from others, you're cultivating gratitude. With doing for others, you're cultivating selflessness. Which brings us to the last one, story of the day, which I think is the most important one. I often, struggle to write this one because how is it different from wins, really? And here's an explanation that I can help you with, because when I am writing the story of the day, what I'm having to do is almost like rewind and kind of think through what happened that day, the whole day. And that gives me sort of a compression of the day, and it gives me some psychological distance from the day. So you could have lived a day where you were frustrated, like it happens to me, but I was frustrated with something, or I was impatient with something. But as I think about overall how the day went, those are parts of the recipe, but the overall picture is no, it was actually kind of a rewarding day. Like I feel like I did a difference in something, right? And that psychological distance is what ultimately cultivates narrative convergence. You're building a one-sentence narrative of your day, and you're able to converge it into really getting closer to where you find meaning in life. And that is maybe the most important part of that story of the day. So I try to write it kind of quickly, but you can take your time. And now you can see, now if you have these 5 sentences to review at the end of the week, when you're kind of reviewing your week for you, you're getting a lot of different information, insights about yourself. And it is, like I said, it's exponentially more helpful than just 1 sentence a day, because of the kind of insights you get from this. I'll warn you that if the story of the day ends up becoming negative, and if you are somebody who's susceptible to being, finding, criticizing yourself, you might say, man, I wasted my day today. Here's another day I wasted today, and so on. And it happens to me all the time too. So just be careful if you're that kind of a person. Just be careful of that if you're getting into that trend, that do that reflection at the end of the week. So that's a caution I'll give you. And here's what I do about that. If I notice at the end of the week, so like Sunday night is when I usually do my weekly reflection. If I notice that it happened a few weeks ago when I saw the story of the day was, man, I wasted a lot of time on YouTube. And I was binging stuff about this, that, or the other. It helps me say, okay, clearly something's happening that is forcing me to avoid, which is usually how I've over the time discovered that when I'm on YouTube and I'm kind of binging some YouTube, I'm trying to avoid something, or I'm trying to find some self-soothing through that, because it helps me sort of not think and kind of escape. So it's an escape. And then I can ask the question, well, what am I escaping from? And then maybe that's something in my power to solve or not. So like a few weeks ago when that happened, I realized that I was actually trying to avoid thinking about a project that was actually tough and coming up, and it's been kind of, it's been a little challenging with this project in the past. So I have some history with it. So I realized that is what I was trying to avoid. So now that I knew about it, I could tackle that head on. And then that is what I did in the future, is I was able to just carve out some time. And then what was happening was I had this challenging project. Also, my time seemed to be getting away from me, that I couldn't really spend time working on this project. So I ended up carving out some time and really getting into this project and muscling through that discomfort. And then I got to a certain point on it, and then it was fine. So I was able to get over that avoidance, and then the YouTube watching also kind of went away with it. So that was the kind of insight that I got at the end of the week when I was kind of reviewing what was a negative-ish story of the day. So that's all I'll leave you with. Takes a minute to do at the end of the day. WORDS, just write down the words, a sentence around it, and then I think the impact you will see at the end of the week with the benefit that comes from just having that level of insight on a daily basis, and 7 of those at the end of the week, is going to be amazing. So I hope this helps you, and I'll see you in the next one.